welcome. If you guys are watching this on YouTube and want to watch these live streams live from now on, you can look at the link in the description on Sportscaster, find the FlurrySports page. But today we're going to be diving into some ADP battles for the 2020 fantasy football season. I'm joined by Henry. How's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Living my best life out here. Just living it up.
All we can do at this point, man.
Yeah. And Jake, how are you doing? Not too far from me.
I'm doing well. I've enjoyed obviously having basketball and hockey back. I've got my one eye on golf over here as we've got 5 guys tied with just a few holes left to win the PGA Championship. But I'm excited to jump into fantasy football here as well. Zach, I can tell that you weren't keeping your eye on the Sunday championships here, but yeah, we're going down the stretch. We got one group on hole 13, one group on hole 15, and we have looks like a new leader, but then we have 6 guys tied for a second one shot back. So exciting stuff happening in the sports world right now, or world of sports right now, excuse me.
I just want to throw out there, I think Zach's the only one who doesn't have it on. I've got it over here too. So
in the whole country right now.
I got to tell you, I wish I did because I've been doing nothing but NBA all day, and that's been a dumpster fire. So I would have rather watched pretty much anything else. But
golf has been awesome all weekend. The course is set up nice too. There's not any crazy scores out there. I mean, leader right now is 11 under, so that's exactly what you want out of a golf tournament.
I need to get more into golf, especially with you guys like actually knowing your shit. I need to just like get as much information from you as possible.
I cashed 3 out of 5 big time cashes too. I'm in the top 20 for 2 DFSs for golf, and then I'm like 300 and something in another one. But cashed 3 out of 5 this weekend.
That works. I could definitely see us doing some, not me, but like you two doing some golf shows going forward. I don't think there's a lot of people doing that. So if we can get some golf betting, golf DFS stuff going on here, I think that would be cool. If there's interest, let us know. And we will definitely do that. Not me, because I'll have fun with it, but it definitely won't be good. But today we're talking about football, something I actually know something about. And we're going to be taking a little trip through 4 different ADP battles, picking between players at the same position that you might be having to decide between in your drafts. There's no losing player between these two. They're all going to be good, but we're going to help kind of break the tie. And Jake and Henry are on opposite sides of this, so we will see who wins the debate between each of these things. But first, we're going to start out with quarterbacks. We have an ADP battle between Dak Prescott and Deshaun Watson. Dak Prescott was quarterback 2 last season, Watson quarterback 5. Right now, that ADP is Prescott's going as the 4th quarterback, 65th overall. Deshaun Watson is quarterback 5, quarterback 6, and he's 69 overall. In terms of consistency, they're pretty much the same. Prescott was a quarterback 1 63% of the time, and Watson 60% of the time. Jake, I know you are leaning towards Dak Prescott, the man looking for a contract right now. Why do you like him more than Deshaun Watson?
Just some quick main points before we dive in deep here. Just as a quick fly overview, I think that the talent around Deshaun Watson much better, exceeds the talent that the Texans got going on by a mile right now. I think, as you just mentioned, a guy playing for his own contract, he's bet on himself multiple times, turned down insane amounts of money. I think he's going to ball out again. As far as coaches, I will take a reinvigorated, rested Mike McCarthy over Bill O'Brien, and whatever Bill O'Brien's been doing, I'll take McCarthy 10 times out of 10 over what we've seen out of O'Brien. And as you mentioned, also Zach, Deshaun Watson was a few quarterbacks below Dak Prescott last year. Dak was actually the 3rd overall fantasy scorer, and that was while Deshaun Watson had one of the best receivers in the league in DeAndre Hopkins on his team. Hopkins is now gone. So even with the benefit of Hopkins last season, he wasn't able to match what Dak was able to do. So for all those reasons, I think I can't come up with one reason. I'm sure Henry's going to point something out, but I can't come up with one reason why you would take Deshaun Watson over Dak here, other than the fact that Deshaun Watson, of course, has been in the top 10 fantasy scores for the past bunch of years. That's because he does everything himself. He's always got the ball in his hands. He's always trying, to do something. I think Dak can allocate to his other more talented players on offense and then still reap the benefits. He's got a bunch of guys to throw it to. He can hit Elliott out in the flats. Elliott can pick up a bunch of yards. There's just a bunch of ways for Dak to stack up points this year that I think is going to be harder for Watson to come by.
I mean, fair points. I would love to know, Henry, why do you like Watson more than Dak, though?
Well, I'm going to give Jake all the credit for saying that he would take McCarthy over Bill O'Brien, because I would as well.
That's not a hard choice.
Not exactly sure what Houston is planning on as far as the future goes, and we've even seen Deshaun Watson himself working out in a Dolphins apparel, I believe it was, here in the offseason. So a little contentious, and especially with losing your best target, that's going to be tough. Where I am going to fire back, I think, here is I'm not convinced that Houston doesn't have the talent for Watson to get the ball to. Brandon Cooks, if he's healthy, he's shown that he can do it. We saw that with the Saints. We saw it with the Patriots. Obviously, the Rams situation, not exactly the best. I think he can step in, and obviously going with the deep ball as well. That'll be something that will work well. And then you've still got Kenny Stills there. You've got Will Fuller. Will Fuller, of course, injury prone as well. If he's on the field, though, he's a game changer, and we've seen him and Watson have a real connection when he is healthy. So fingers crossed that Will Fuller can stay healthy there. Kiki QT going further down the depth chart. You got the rookie Isaiah Coulter. We'll see what he might bring to the table. And you also add in Randall Cobb. Now, granted, not sure exactly what he has left, but I think the point for me is there are a lot of talents. And, yeah, you're losing one of the best receivers in the game in Hopkins with the questionable trade. But it's not like Watson is lacking in receivers. David Johnson out of the backfield. He can catch a few balls as well. Deshaun Watson, for me, I guess some other people might debate this, but he's going to have more rushing ability than Dak Prescott, and I would take him there. Lamar Jackson, just looking at him, we know how important rushing is to fantasy. I'll touch on 2019, I guess, as well, while we're at it. Now, Watson did not play the full 16-game schedule. Prescott did, so there was 15 games, 16 games. I used PPR scoring, and it finished. Prescott had almost 349 fantasy points, and Watson had 333. Deshaun Watson's average fantasy points per game last season, 22.2. So essentially, if Watson plays the full schedule, he's going to finish ahead there. And again, yes, that's with Hopkins, but I don't see a significant drop-off when you have a multitude of targets. It's not all going to go to one guy. I don't know that I'm banking on any of these Houston targets to be a major fantasy asset themselves. I think there will be contributors. No one's going to be on Hopkins level, but Watson's going to have guys to get the ball to. And if I just look at Dallas real quick, yeah, they're loaded. They got plenty of weapons. CeeDee Lamb coming in there. He's joining Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. You got to be excited about that. But also Ezekiel Elliott is still going to get his on the ground. And, is Prescott going to have the same volume? Jake, you said Watson doing it himself all the time. Look at Russell Wilson. How are the Seahawks doing some of what they do? And it's because Russell Wilson's just pulling rabbits out of the hat all the time. And I think we may see Deshaun Watson doing that more than ever this year.
Yeah, my only rebuttal to them having equal fantasy points would be the fact that he did it with Hopkins, and now he's gone, and that just makes things easier. I mean, it does. You can't compare DeAndre Hopkins to. So let me take it back a step or two. I think at one time both Kenny Stills and why am I forgetting his name now? Kenny Stills and help me out here. The other wide receiver that you mentioned, the new receiver with Texans. Cooks, thank you, Brandon Cooks. They're both speedy. They're both little guys, and they both have value attached to their name. But I don't know if they're the players that they really once were. As you mentioned, they themselves, none of them probably going to be huge fantasy assets. They allow you to spread the ball around, but they're not, if you want to use the phrase, a cheat code like DeAndre Hopkins, a guy who can go up, get the ball, make a play for you down the field. I think they're guys that have to rely on their speed to get open, and there's a lot of cornerbacks that are going to be able to battle with them because of their relative size. Now, they're not the smallest guys in the world. I think they're 6 foot, somewhere in that range. But as far as Will Fuller, then, I mean, Will Fuller has missed 20 games in the last 3 seasons. Until he can stick on the field and help his team out, I don't want to hear anything about Will Fuller. He's got talent, but he's never around. So you take Will Fuller off the field for even half the games, you're now able to double cover one of these smaller receivers. You might get something out of Randall Cobb, in the slot in the middle of the field or something. But as far as just a guy who can go up and get the ball, help you out, bail you out of certain situations, that's just gone. It's straight up gone with the departure of Hopkins. So I'm not saying, like, this is not an argument saying, Watson's going to have a terrible year. He's not going to put up stats. Like, I'm sure he's going to. But as far as who I'm taking in these two, when you compare these two, this year, I just see so many positives on the horizon for Dak. And I see a lot of questions on the horizons. Players that need to prove themselves, a questionable coach, not as good of an offensive line. I mean, Dallas's offensive line is not as good as it was 3 or 4 years ago, or when Dak first stepped in, but they're still very good. And Deshaun Watson gets sacked. I don't have an exact stat on this, but I think he averaged like 3 sacks a game or something like that. Like, he's always scrambling. He's always on the move. So I just think he's going to have a lot more difficulty overcoming the adversity which his team provides. Whereas Dak, I think, is just going to be able to plug and play, and as long as he's at his best, I think he's going to find success.
I think it's almost a debate of, is one star better than a group of wide receivers, like mediocre ones? Because losing DeAndre Hopkins, you can't really put a price tag on that. He is arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. I would say he's top 3 pretty confidently. But there's a lot of people saying that the collective is better than just him. I mean, David Johnson, I think, is underrated. I think he's going to be a good weapon for this team. Randall Cobb, as soon as he heard Mike McCarthy's come to Dallas, Randall Cobb got the fuck out of town and he went to Houston. So I think that says a little bit about Mike McCarthy.
That's an easy move down the road to Houston, though. He didn't run that far.
Yeah, but still. I think this year is going to, by the way, I don't like Bill O'Brien, but this year is going to say a lot about what kind of coach Bill O'Brien is. If he is able to bring that offensive creativity back and use his running backs as receivers in a thoughtful way, not just let them run swing patterns out to the flats and stand there, I think this team could be really, really dang good. And Deshaun Watson's going to be the person benefiting from that, obviously. And then the whole narrative about contract for Dak, I don't give a shit. Deshaun Watson just saw Patrick Mahomes get paid $500 million, and he thinks he's next. So everyone's playing for a contract. Deshaun Watson, same draft class as Patrick Mahomes, I believe. So obviously he wants that as well. It just comes down to consistency and what you think these guys are going to do. Can Dak Prescott adjust to a new offense with Mike McCarthy in enough time with a limited offseason? I don't know. His benefit is Mike McCarthy runs slant flats about 90% of the time anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It's not a hard offense to read. And I personally would side with Dak just a little bit just because of that offensive line. I trust him to be in that game. But I don't know. Well, he also has the running game to open stuff up too.
Yeah, exactly. And like Dak is one of those guys that, like, he may not get the rushing attempts that Watson gets, but because of how the offense is set up and because of Elliott, you see him break off like a 60-yard run up the middle sometimes where there's just nobody there and he just takes off. And, if you can get those giant chunk plays, it adds up as opposed to, Watson's many more smaller runs. But I just have a few final points going back. I think that Dak was limited in last year's offense compared to what we might see out of, again, I think McCarthy hopefully studied his own offense, changed a few things, has reinvented himself, is invigorated with this new offense. And even, I know, Zach, like, we don't have to get into McCarthy stuff right now. There's plenty of time down the road for that. But, like, you're talking about Jason Garrett. Like, he replaced Jason Garrett. So you can't tell me that, like, Dak wasn't being held back by the offense that he was running, at least to a certain degree last year. Beyond that, I have one other point of actually, it's not even that important. I was just going to say, like, the whole collective versus one star thing. It's like these guys, they've been traveling around maybe for a reason. Like, yeah, they're decent guys, and you don't mind having them on your team, but like nobody ever wants them to stick around. Like how many teams has Kenny Stills been on in the past few years? Everybody's just willing to let him go. And there's a reason for that. And because he can plug into a different offense and like contribute a little, but he's not going to be a game breaker, a game changer. And then there was one final point that I was trying to think of, something that you said, Zach, but I can't remember. So anyway, I just think Dak is set up for much better season this year.
I'll just add, listening to Zach talk and then you, Jake, three things. Texans, I think the drop-off, the perspective or perceived drop-off in the market is overblown. I think they're still a legitimate AFC South contender. AFC, they'll be in the mix again. I don't see, especially the offense. And then for Dallas, new coach, we've touched on that. And also the offensive line, Jake said it earlier, it's not what it once was. He's going to have a new center this year, he and being Prescott. So just a few other pointers there to keep in mind.
I did think of that. I mean, great points. And again, like you touched on at the beginning of this video, like these are all draft semantics. So like there is really no true winner until we see the end of the season. But like the last point that I wanted to bring up was David Johnson, Randall Cobb. Again, these are the type of players that are in a prove it type situation. They are a second, third chance for a lot of these guys. Like David Johnson, I think has had 2 touchdowns in the last 3 seasons or something like that. Like, yeah, he was a great player and he could be that player again, but he still is in a prove it type situation. And I think that could be said almost across the board for this Texans team, coaches included. So
completely agree. Let's head to the running back position now. We have another heated battle between Ezekiel Elliott and Alvin Kamara. Elliott finished as running back 3 last season, while Kamara was running back 9 in 14 games. ADP so far is kind of flipped. Ezekiel Elliott over the past month has been going as running back 7, which is 8 overall. Kamara's been going as running back 3rd overall. Henry, you like Alvin Kamara. You probably a believer of that draft position. Why is that?
So the biggest reason that I would take Kamara in this battle is positive regression. 248.5 fantasy points in PPR scoring last year. And somehow that was one of the biggest disappointments of the 2019 fantasy season, despite him finishing running back 9 overall. So top 10 running back, and yet it was a disappointment. Owners have been spoiled by Kamara the past the seasons prior, and there's going to be some regression from that high of a points total every single season. A couple things that might have contributed to that. Well, did contribute to that probably. He missed a couple games with injury. We got to remember that. And you're wondering, how is he worse in fantasy points without Mark Ingram being in New Orleans last year? Only 6 total touchdowns, 5 rushing, 1 receiving. That's the reason right there for the drop-off in fantasy points. It's not yardage, and it wasn't touches. Maybe he missed a few touches being out the 2 games, but he was still getting work. Averaged 4.7 yards per carry, 6.6 yards per reception. Those are solid numbers. If you get a positive regression in terms of finding the end zone, which undoubtedly you're going to get, I think the Saints offense is going to be plenty fine here going into 2020. You got Drew Brees coming back. The passing attack will still be there. Michael Thomas, we don't have to say anything. They're adding in Emmanuel Sanders as well. You get a new center in Cesar Ruiz, the rookie, first-round pick. Kamara's going to be fine. And just to kind of give Jake a little something to go off here why I would take him over Elliott on the flip side. We just talked about how Dallas has all these weapons in the passing attack, and Jake, you love Dak Prescott. Obviously, you love Ezekiel Elliott too, so you love all the Cowboys. And I won't say what that does for my heart necessarily, because we're going to keep this neutral. But with so many weapons and potentially an even more explosive aerial attack coming out of Dallas, depending on what McCarthy does there, I said that Ezekiel Elliott could eat into Prescott's passing attempts. But at the same time, the passing attack could eat into Elliott's touches a little bit potentially. But for me, the overall argument here is Kamara is still a do-it-all back, and there's going to be a positive regression on touchdowns. I was even looking at a season prop bet. I believe it was 9.5 or 10.5 touchdowns over under, and I wrote a piece of why I like the over for that. So for Kamara, total touchdowns, receiving and rushing. So I think that number is going to come up. Obviously lock both these guys into fantasy lineups, but for me, I'm going to take the Saints and what we know we have going in that offense versus, yes, a new coach and new system. Yes, Elliott's great. There are some changes there, and the offensive line could impact him even more than Prescott potentially.
Yeah, only 6 touchdowns is extremely surprising. I think if he even reaches 10 or doubles that 6 number, like, he's blowing a lot of other backs out of the water. I think, though, on the flip side of that is Ezekiel Elliott will, even with the talented wide receiver position, even with Dak Prescott, he's the one that they look to first in the red zone when it's just a short run, or they try and pound the ball with Zeke first. If that doesn't work, then they look elsewhere. I think we could see a lot of situations where the passing game gets them inside the 5, and then it's another 2 attempts for Zeke, and he ends up in the end zone a lot. Like, we've seen games before where he's had, less than 100 yards rushing, but he has 4 touchdowns. Like, those games really add up. So I think that it can work against him, no doubt, but I also think that it could work with him and create more opportunities, having more weapons in this offense. This is probably the closest battle that I had between any of them. I like both of these backs, and I could see, Kamara outshining Elliott just as easy as I could see it going the other way. But like I said, I think Zeke gets more touchdown opportunities. He's always towards the top of the rankings ever since he's come into the league. And the one other thing is, this is the first season, and I don't know how many seasons, that there hasn't been any controversy, at least yet, around Elliott coming into the season. He hasn't gotten himself into a situation. He doesn't have a suspension that's lurking at any point, like none of that stuff. So I think, barring injury, I think we're going to see him for 16 healthy games, unless they, sit him in week 16 or something like that. But I don't foresee the new coaching scheme or the amount of talent really harming him that much. Might take away some total yardage opportunities. But again, I think he's going to have all the red zone opportunities you could ask for. So as long as he makes good on those, I think he has potential of, who knows, he might even set a touchdown record this season. You really don't know.
Jake's turning into a Cowboys fan right before our eyes, and I don't know how to feel.
I'm not.
I don't like it.
This year just presents, like, I just think things look really good for the Cowboys. And again, I don't think there's a lot of questions there. I don't. Obviously, the Saints, great coaching staff, amazing quarterback. Michael Thomas is amazing. Alvin Kamara, like, they've got it all stacked up too. But that doesn't mean that it's going to personally affect Elliott in a negative way. And I think, again, my biggest point is Elliott gets those chances no matter who gets them inside the red zone. No matter what, they're looking to Elliott first. And everybody knows they're looking to Elliott, and a lot of times defenses still can't stop them. So I'm going to roll with Elliott this year.
Henry, I do have a quick question for you. You mentioned how Saints did go out and get Emmanuel Sanders. They drafted tight end Adam Trotman pretty high, I believe. Alvin Kamara, one of my favorite stats. I don't know how he did it, but playing 16, 15, 14 games his first 3 years, every year 81 receptions every time. Do you think that goes down at all with the added pass catchers on the Saints?
Oh man, that's tough. I feel like it won't be 81 this time. Yeah, if we're shooting the middle right there, it might go down a little bit. Even if it does go down though, and the touchdowns go up, I'm not worried. And Latavius Murray, he's a fine running back. We've seen him do it in a couple of different places here in the NFL. When Kamara was healthy, he wasn't eating into his workload at all. So there's no worry there. Kamara he'll still get his receptions. It might not be 81. I guess I would lean a little bit under there, just because I am excited about these other weapons, and also I'm not quite sure if I'm buying as good a year out of Drew Brees as I think some people are just banking on at this point. I'll add that in there too. Now, granted, Kamara will be able to make up for that with rushing. He doesn't have to rely on Brees for that, but that is something else that I'm curious to see how it unfolds here in the Saints offense.
Well, I just do want to add that, Kamara is going to score. He's going to have more than 6 touchdowns this year. I mean, you can mark down double digits almost positively. So if you add the additional, let's say 4 touchdowns at 6 points apiece, that's 24 fantasy points. So if you subtract 24 catches from that 81 total, he's only got to catch the ball 57 times then. So if he's able to score only 4 more touchdowns, it erases the need for all of those extra, point per reception. So even if his total does drop by over 20 receptions, as long as he scores 4 touchdowns or more, you're already breaking even. So that's something to think about with Kamara as well.
That's quick math that I can't do, but I appreciate it.
I'm a communications major too. Impressive, huh?
Ooh,
I haven't done math.
Well done.
I haven't done math since I think 2015, maybe. But
Same here.
Still up here.
Cowboys offense last year, as bad as Jason Garrett was, apparently they were the number 1 offense in the league. I do see that stepping back with a tougher schedule. And then, you can argue, was that going to hurt Ezekiel Elliott or not? Who knows? He's definitely the number 1 option there. I would honestly side with Alvin Kamara just because of those injuries. Yes, he did miss 2 games last year, but he has come out and said he had a lot more injuries. He was playing hurt all year. He basically said, him and his trainer both said he was playing with 1 leg all year. And if that's 1 leg, Alvin Kamara, then, this is going to be scary this year. And yeah, I do think his receptions might come down. Last year, he was on pace, obviously, for the most receptions of his career. He was on pace for 110 targets, would have been most of his career. We could see those targets come down to, if he plays 16 games, I would say around 90, 95, with the added weapon of Emmanuel Sanders. I think that's fine. I think that's enough. And if, just like Dak Prescott does help open up running lanes for Ezekiel Elliott, obviously the spread of the Saints does the same thing for Alvin Kamara, along with he's a better pass catcher than Ezekiel Elliott. The one thing I will say, I don't agree with Elliott being, running back 7? Yeah, he's running back 7 right now. I don't get that at all.
That's asinine. Who are you putting in front of him besides maybe a Kamara and 1 or 2 other guys? 7? Are you kidding me? 7? Yeah. At that point, you got to be reaching for guys like Melvin Gordon and stuff and putting in front of Zeke. 7 is nuts to me.
And this is data from just the past month. Kamara's going 3rd overall after Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. I don't think that's an argument. Then Dalvin Cook. After that, it's the added hype. You got rookie Clyde Edwards-Helaire going as that running back with the news of Damian Williams not there. I would assume they add another running back. Then it's Derrick Henry and then Ezekiel Elliott.
Okay, Derrick Henry. See, and then Derrick Henry was named the 10th best player in the NFL on their top 100 list or whatever, but he's only the 6th best running back. None of these lists they never mesh. They don't make any sense. But as far as the top 3 he's got, I agree with it. You could have Kamara or Elliott, in my opinion, at 3 or 4, however you want to do it. 1 and 2, I think, between Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, you're going to have a tough time arguing with that. But I think Saquon Barkley, we know what he's capable of. We know he's going to be a monster. But to say he's better overall, a better running back than either Kamara or Elliott, I mean, I think that in itself is a statement that could be argued.
I think definitely. And it's an argument for another day, but I do have some Saquon Barkley hate. We'll save that though. I think he's not going to be running back too. Anyway, any last closing thoughts, Henry, about this battle?
I think we touched on all of the key points. Obviously, you love both of them. I agree with you completely. Elliott is not RB7 in my rankings at this point. You got Dalvin Cook with a contract situation. Elliott's just too good of a spot there, and we've seen what both of these guys can do. And I would expect both of them to be neck and neck running here. But for me, the added games, again, more touchdowns. I got to go with Kamara here.
I respect that. And for me, I mean, if Elliott's not there, if Elliott or McCaffrey's not there, I mean, there's zero hesitation in taking Kamara. So, I mean, he's right there. Like I said, these two are neck and neck for me, pretty much the most even out of our ADP battles today.
I would agree.
Cool. Let's head to wide receiver. Again, we are looking at these with a PPR lens, not standard. That will change some things. We got a couple big wide receivers, Kenny Gallaudet versus Mike Evans. Kenny Gallaudet last season finished as wide receiver 9. Mike Evans, wide receiver 15, while missing 3 games. ADP, Golladay is currently going as wide receiver 7 overall, 26 overall. ADP, wide receiver 8 for Mike Evans, 28 overall, so essentially even right there. Jake, you like Mike Evans in that new look Tampa Bay offense with Tom Brady there. What do you like about Mike Evans?
So I'm kind of going to counteract myself here. In our first argument, I was saying, you know, there's too many questions, too many unknowns in the Texans compared to Dallas. Well, now I'm going to say you should go with the unknowns, the unpredictables in the Bucks, because the Lions are very predictable. We know what's going to happen. They're going to win 5 games. They play for a defensive-minded coach who can never win. They never win anything. So even though he might put up numbers, even though he might have a decent year, he's on a much worse team with a defensive-minded coach. Now, all I really have to say about Mike Evans is the guy already balls out every year. He goes out. He can make incredible plays. He can fight double, triple coverage. Like, we see it all the time. Mike Evans is unreal. So I think either him or Goodwin, I think they're going to have the year of their life because of the Gronk being on the field and, you know, the added offensive attack and the added talent around Tom Brady. As far as the deep ball, like, I don't know what's left in Tom Brady's deep ball, how often he's going to chuck 140 yards down the field. I don't know. So maybe it's going to be Goodwin who suffers a little bit more, and then Mike Evans is going to eat because everybody's worried about the running game, about Gronk, about Goodwin down the field, and that's going to leave Mike Evans in some very favorable one-on-one matchups. He might even get, I mean, sometimes they might have to stick some linebacker on him, or a tiny, like a little cornerback that has no chance against Mike Evans. So I think it's pretty simple for me. I think just because of who he has around him, he's going to be the third option on this team. Like, Mike Evans as the third option is scary. So I'm taking Evans this year, even though, you know, Gallaudet is going to get a majority of the looks, and I'm sure he's going to have some big chunk plays, probably going to have a lot more receptions overall than Mike Evans. But I think Evans is going to benefit from the team around him.
Henry, what do you think about Kenny Gallaudet?
Yeah, I'm on the other side of the boat. I hear what you're picking up and putting down, Jake, but I'm not exactly a huge fan or a believer before we see it in action of actually, quite frankly, a lot of this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. I think Chris Godwin will be just fine. Mike Evans is the one who I worry about more because, like you said, we don't know if Tom Brady has a deep ball left, much of, if any. It wasn't really on display his last several years in New England, that quick hit dink and dunk offense that is so pleasurable to watch on TV. also, Brady's in a new spot. You've got other weapons in this offense. We can talk about my hate for Rob Gronkowski another time. But that's learning a new playbook. And Brady himself has been like, I haven't had to study the playbook in years. And all of a sudden I have to learn a new system. So, add in the warm climate that could even play a factor. There's a lot of things in Tampa Bay I'm not so sure about. As far as Kenny Gallaudet goes, though, 248 fantasy points last year. That's the wide receiver 9, as Zach said. We already touched on Mike Evans missing the 3 games. Gallaudet played a full schedule, but Gallaudet played half the schedule without his quarterback, Matthew Stafford, and I can't even remember all the guys Detroit had back there throwing the ball. David Blau, the rest are slipping me right now, but it wasn't pretty, and Gallaudet still was a top 10 wide receiver. That's impressive. So assuming Matthew Stafford is going to be in there for more than half a season, you got to love Gallaudet, I think, again. Prime of his career. And for me, the Lions are actually a rebound candidate. The offense, I don't think there's a lot of excitement here, kind of buzz around DeAndre Swift coming into the backfield. Can they get some sort of running game going, or at least backfield production between him and Kerryon Johnson? And Jake, you were talking about Mike Evans potentially being the second or third option in that Tampa Bay offense. Golladay is the clear number 1. Yes, Marvin Jones is a solid receiver. Danny Amendola, the resurrection last year, that was great. Hopefully it continues for the Lions. Galladay's the guy, and Geronimo Allison, if he was going to do anything, he opted out because of COVID.
He wasn't going to do anything.
Yeah, well, he's not an issue anymore anyway. And the tight ends last year, maybe flashes, but not overly involved in Jesse James and T.J. Hawkinson. I know a lot of people are banking on a better sophomore campaign for Hawkinson. I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon just yet either. I like Gallaudet. Matt Patricia's a defensive-oriented coach. The defense hasn't been particularly good, and when your defense isn't good, you're going to be throwing a lot. You got Stafford back there who can throw it. Give me Gallaudet in this one, and honestly, this one was probably the furthest gap, I think, between the two for me, just in terms of comparing them.
Well, I think so going back to last year's numbers, I think Gallaudet being without his starting quarterback for a chunk of time and Mike Evans missing 3 games kind of evens the playing field for them a little bit. Kind of makes them on the same level. Missing 3 games, missing your starting quarterback. But with
8 games though.
What's that?
8 games. Half a season without your starting.
But he's still out there able to produce, and it's not like they weren't good, but Blau was still looking for him. They were still trying to feed him the ball. Like, he was still out there being the number 1 option, whereas Evans was not on the field at all. So 3 games versus 8 games, it's a big number, but either way, Evans only had 16 less points than Gallaudet last year, and that's with Chris Godwin on his team being the number 1 guy, being the second or the number 1 overall fantasy receiver, or number 2, excuse me. He trailed Michael Thomas. No, he didn't. They have it. This website has it wrong. He had 276. Michael Thomas had. Oh wait, I read it wrong. Michael Thomas beat him by almost 100 points. That's on me.
Communication major.
Yeah. But so anyway, like he's been able to do it as the number 2 option. Now, of course, he benefited playing with Jameis Winston, who's more than willing to chuck the ball up, has 500 yards a game. So it's going to look different with Tom Brady. That much is clear. That much I'm obviously willing to admit. But just because he's the 3rd option, I think, again, that could benefit him. That's going to put him in some positive matchups. That's going to place him across the line of scrimmage from some guys that he can destroy. So obviously, Goodwin's still going to be the number 1 concern. But Gronk, whether you like him or you don't, I mean, he's in great shape. He's good. Gronkowski, he's got the respect of every defense, every defensive coordinator, every head coach. They're going to double him quite a bit. So I think Mike Evans being the 3rd option, not that much of a negative to him. As far as Gallaudet being the number 1 option, like, obviously that's always an advantage. But again, it brings me back to Mike Evans essentially having the same numbers as he did last year, even though Gallaudet was a number 1 option. Now Gallaudet is going to have more points than he did last year, probably because of having Stafford. another quarterback just like Jameis Winston who's willing to chuck the ball down the field, not afraid to throw interceptions. So, I mean, you do have me in that point of the argument, but as far as Evans like being affected negatively by this Bucs new offense, I don't really see it unless they just don't throw the ball nearly as much. But I don't see that. I don't see that with Bruce Arians either. He likes to force the ball down the field, likes to throw the ball a lot, and Tom Brady's no stranger to throwing the ball 45 times a game either. So we'll have to see what it looks like. But I think Evans potentially can have some monster games this year.
I would just add, can Brady still get it down the field, though? That's the thing for me. I got to ask Zach a question, though. Like, he's asking us the questions. I want to ask Zach a question. So we know the rapport between Gronkowski and Brady. And Jake's saying that Gronk may be the fringe second option in this offense, but yet Brady and Gronk are now playing in an Arians offense that really does not throw to the tight ends a whole lot. I think I've just been looking at it as Evans is, he's going to be clearly ahead of Gronk. And even so, I don't like him as much as Gallaudet, but Godwin is my one in that offense with Brady. Evans is two. Where do you come down on that?
Yeah, Gronkowski is one of the most obvious bust candidates of the year, in my opinion. They're going to be running a lot of 12 personnel with two tight ends anyway, which is not Bruce Arians' style. This offense is going to look more like a Tom Brady offense than a Bruce Arians one. But they're going to run the two tight ends. They're going to run them crossing, like Gronk clear and let either O.J. Howard and Brait run underneath one way, Chris Godwin run the other way. Evans is the clear second option to me. And then, they went out of their way to get receiving running backs as well. They just picked up LaShawn McCoy. Tom Brady will use them enough. And I don't really have any questions about Tom Brady getting the ball down the field. I hate Tom Brady. His small hands and humid Tampa weather is going to result in some fumbles, I think. You can just look at his stats in cold weather and see that he likes it when the ball's a little bit more deflated because of the weather, if you can believe that. And there's a lot of stats to back that up. But I want to go back to the Kenny Golladay without Matthew Stafford thing, because it shouldn't be understated. With Stafford, weeks 1 through 9, he averaged 17.4 points per game, obviously PPR. 10 through 17 was like Jeff Driscoll and all of them, 13.6 per game. So that's a big deal. 17.4, that puts him somewhat on par with DeAndre Hopkins, also puts him on par with Mike Evans. That's why I like this debate quite a bit. Obviously, Mike Evans isn't going to see that same target share as he did before, just because they didn't lose weapons, they added weapons. So he's going to lose target share. My big thing with Mike Evans is, what's his role? Before he was the deep threat, he was the big red zone option. They bring in Gronkowski, so that takes away a red zone option. Gronkowski also is going to run a lot of seams, so it kind of takes away the outside weapon. If Gronkowski is going to clear the linebacker and Mike Evans is going to run, a go route and clear the safety, why wouldn't they just throw to Chris Godwin, who has 10, 15 yards of space underneath? That's the way Tom Brady's offense has always ran, with Julian Edelman in that slot role. That's why I think it's going to look here. And don't be surprised to see like Vaughn line up split out as well, running as a wide receiver. They're just going to put as many playmakers on the outside as possible, run underneath, dink and dunk. They will take more deep shots than you've seen from Tom Brady recently because of the Bruce Arians offense. Also because Tom Brady's had nobody as a deep threat in a while. Philip Dorsett was kind of his pride and joy for a while, and that kind of tells you what he's had. But yeah, this is a interesting debate. Where I come down on it, I look at the schedule. So Mike Evans is going to get Marshawn Lattimore coverage twice a year. He's going to get shut down. He always does. He's going to, face tough defenders. Kenny Golladay can't be stopped by anybody in the NFC North. There's no shot. Packers have Jair Alexander, who's small, can't stop him. Vikings have a completely new cornerback room. They're not going to stop him. Bears, if Stafford has enough time to throw, then Bears aren't going to stop him. And so that's the only reason why I come down with Kenny Golladay. Mike Evans, I think the hate actually has gone a little bit too far, but He's not a guy I'm going to own. There's just too many question marks for me.
Well, I think if you can get him at the right spot, like, again, not saying this is a top 3 wide receiver you should take necessarily, but if there's a ton of value in him, and I mean, obviously same thing with Kenny Gallaudet, but I'm glad you threw those specific numbers at me, because just harkening back real quick to comparing last year, Mike Evans' missed time versus Matthew Stafford being out, with the numbers that you gave me, and I rounded up even in favor of Kenny Gallaudet, he missed out on somewhere between 40 and 42 fantasy points if you're just following averages. Probably, if you have Stafford out there for 8 games, there's going to be some big, long play opportunity that there just wasn't with David Blau, right? But if you go along with his averages from his first 8 games, he would have scored about 40 more points on the season. Mike Evans was averaging 17.84 fantasy points per game. So in the 3 games that he missed, almost 55 fantasy points that he would have missed out on. So just by those calculations, Mike Evans, Mike Evans' missed time was worth more in a negative way than Kenny Gallaudet, but you can't exactly measure them because, again, I'm assuming over the course of 8 games, if Kenny Gallaudet was out there with Matthew Stafford, he would have beaten his averages on probably 2 or 3 of those games. But just wanted to throw that out there.
Henry, any other thoughts about this battle?
I got to plug in my computer quick so I don't die on you guys.
Sounds good.
No, I think we've pretty much hit on all the key points. I'm still going to take Gallaudet. I think a full season with Matthew Stafford. That just gets me excited, I think, as a guy that he's not going to be one of the first receivers off the board, but he's going to be in that, that little run once you get into it. Not going necessarily with Michael Thomas. Tyreek Hill will be up at the top, those guys. But if you're going running back receiver, Gallaudet figures to be right there. And that 99.9% sure some shares. I can't say 100 because fantasy drafts, they're fluid animals. But I have a feeling I'll have some Gallaudet this year.
And even with the absence of Matthew Stafford, I do have some consistency rankings on the 2 receivers. Kenny Gallaudet finished as a top 12 receiver 31% of the time last year, top 24 receiver 56% of the time. And that's for Mike Evans as well. It's going to be just games he played. He doesn't get hurt by games missed. Mike Evans finished as a top 12 wide receiver 31% of the time as well. And then a top 24 wide receiver 38% of the time. So that just kind of shows how boom or bust he is. If he wasn't a wide receiver 1, he wasn't even a wide receiver 2, essentially. I think that's more of a product of Jameis Winston's inconsistencies than Mike Evans. But it's still something to note. It kind of shows his role on the team as well. And I don't think his role necessarily changes for the better.
Hashtag Jameis forever.
Jameis forever. He's going to be the next Super Bowl winner.
Shout out John Murray.
Okay. Last one, we're going to tight end. We have Darren Waller, who was a breakout last year, versus Zach Ertz, kind of a mainstay at the tight end position now. Darren Waller finished the year as tight end 3. Zach Ertz, tight end 4, while missing 1 game. On a per game average, he would have finished just above Darren Waller. Very, very close. ADP right now, Darren Waller is going as tight end 5 off the board, 62 overall. Zach Ertz, tight end 4, 50 overall, so a round ahead of Waller. Jake, you like Zach Ertz. What do you like about Zach Ertz this year?
Well, you used the word mainstay, and I think for me, it's that consistency. The fact that we know what we're going to get out of Zach Ertz, the fact that he will play through anything, almost nothing takes him off the field, keeps him off the field. We're talking about a guy who 2 out of the last 3 years has finished in 3rd place or higher as far as tight ends. And that 3rd year, he was 4th place, which was last year, beat out, of course, only by Darren Waller. I'd actually like Henry to talk me into Darren Waller because I personally am not touching anybody on the Raiders. I'm not sure about Josh Jacobs. I'm not sure about Waller. I don't think that that they're just I don't know what's going to happen this year, but I don't think that they are going to be very successful as a group, as a unit. I'm not sure that Gruden has the group of guys yet that he wants. I think it's getting closer and closer, but I still don't think he's got the quarterback under center that he wants. And until he does, I don't think we're ever going to see the full Gruden offense run to its the best of its abilities. As far as Darren Waller, like you said, he was a breakout. Obviously, a great story behind this guy. He's got a great look to him. Perfect for the tight end position. But it's just a question mark surrounding the team for me, not necessarily surrounding the player that much. Zach Ertz, I know, could take a small step back because Philly loaded up on new offensive talent. Maybe aren't going to demand as much out of Ertz. And obviously last year they were hurt across the board. So Ertz got a ton of looks, a ton of opportunity. So again, I would like to be talking Darren Waller here, but from what I can see and from what I know, I just can't take him right now over Ertz.
This one's nip and tuck for me. Very close battle here. So I guess I might be in the minority here, but I like what the Raiders have going on. They've been building, this up here for several years now, and every year it seems to get a little bit closer. And talking about a few underachievers that we had, we were discussing those earlier. Overachievers last year, I think in a lot of ways that was Oakland. I'm not sure that a lot of people had them winning 7 games and winning some of the games that they did. Now, Derek Carr, I'm not sure that he's worthy of going out, and I can't remember exactly what his comments were, but he hasn't exactly had tremendous results during his time under center.
He basically he didn't deserve to be hated on or looked down upon the way that people hate on him, which is like, whatever.
Right, yeah.
That's how everybody feels, I would think.
All right, so for me, the hate does go a little far, I think, on Derek Carr. He still has some stuff to prove in the NFL, but he's not a bad quarterback, and I've been higher on him than, for fantasy purposes, than guys for the past couple of years, just in that Oakland offense. For me, Darren Waller, looking at the offense, Derek Carr loves tight ends. So the Raiders obviously loaded up with some new weapons here. Henry Ruggs, the shiny new toy. Is he going to need a year kind of to get into the NFL swing of things? He's a speedster, deep threat. Does that fit the mold of what Derek Carr looks for in a target consistently? I'm not sure. Foster Moreau and Jason Witten are the other 2 tight ends on this team. Witten, I'm not sure exactly what the Raiders are doing there, and that kind of worries me a little bit because if he's seeing unnecessary snaps on the field, that could hurt Waller. And then I'll just talk about the Eagles, I guess, here too real quick. I like Ertz a lot. Like I said, this is a really close battle for me. Dallas Goedert, though, is a name that cannot be ignored. I think both tight ends are going to have major roles in the Philly passing game. Jalen Reagor, the rookie first-round pick, that might have been a little high, a little rich for my blood where the Eagles took him. Obviously, they see something that I might not see relative to some other names that were on the board at that time. But you still got Deshaun Jackson there. Yeah, he's coming off injury and he's older, but he'll play a factor. And Miles Sanders in the passing game as well. I expect he's going to have obviously a bigger role overall this year with no Jordan Howard there as a runner, but he can still catch passes as well. Whereas the Raiders, Josh Jacobs, yeah, he can do it all, but he's definitely going to be more of an up-the-middle guy. Jake, I'm not quite sure why. I'm not sure what you don't see in him. I love Jacobs this year. I think he's going to be even better than last year when he missed time there at the end or was battling injuries, playing through them kind of a little bit. So I think it's another year of progression for Oakland. Las Vegas, I'm sorry. Wow. Got to get used to that. But
I think I did that too. But again,
yeah.
Josh Jacobs obviously ended up having a great year, showed a lot of potential. Again, it's not so much him. I don't have any negative things to say about him. It's the team he plays for, the coach he plays for, the quarterback, the move, everything around it. I'm just not trying to touch the Raiders. I think I can find somebody else that's going to be, on par with whatever Josh Jacobs may or may not do. And then, hey, if he balls out this year and he proves me wrong 2 years in a row, he'll be at the top of my list next year. But again, it's not anything against Waller or Jacobs. It's just the situation that they're in, the team that they're on, that has me a little bit wary.
I completely hear that, and yeah, there might be still some dust to settle here when it comes to Gruden and Carr and just the offensive system in general playing itself out. But I think that there is a lot of talent assembled here, and the offensive line is going to have to stand to upgrade. But just looking at what Jared Cook was able to do with the Raiders with Carr as his quarterback, and then Waller last year, I said Jason Witten kind of worries me a little bit, that signing. If all goes according to plan here for Darren Waller, he's not going to be eating into too much of his workload or target share. And with an improved receiving core, Henry Ruggs could essentially, he's going to, I think, get his this year, but he could also turn out to be an asset, just being a decoy going down the field, opening things up over the middle for a guy like Darren Waller. Also, Hunter Renfro's a guy who I think is being undervalued criminally by a lot of people in the fantasy football world. So I think it's another the Raiders are going to take another step forward this year. I don't think the move is going to be anything to worry about. I'm excited to see him in Vegas, actually. I really feel bad that I said they were still in Oakland.
So you think they're gonna win 8 games this year? Take a step forward, win 8 games?
I'll give them 8. I'll give them 8-8.
Yeah.
They're going to go in the right. Another, at least one more win we're adding on there.
What's crazy though is so Jared Cook, I think, is a guy that doesn't get as much love as he should. I think he's a guy that makes every quarterback he plays for look good. He can make some amazing catches and is just a very consistent tight end. Why the Packers got rid of him for the slew of tight ends that came after him, I will never, ever, ever know. But Jared Cook's a guy that should get more credit at the position than he gets. He did make some really nice plays, consistency there for Oakland, but I don't know how much is credited to Derek Carr in that situation. I'm just not sure. But like I said, as far as every other point you made, I'm on board with it. I'm excited to see them in Las Vegas as well. I'm just not trying to draft one of them and then have them be a clunker my entire year in fantasy this year. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
That's an interesting point, just because, so Zach Ertz, there's very, very little question marks about Zach Ertz. You know what he's going to do this year. It's not like he's going to come out and suddenly look bad. It's not like he's going to come out and suddenly have, no role on this team. Darren Waller was a breakout year last year. He's a former wide receiver converted to tight end. That's why I worked with this Raiders offense. Gruden loves throwing to tight ends. Darren Waller was an athletic option, a mismatch at the position. He was used as a vertical threat to stretch the defense because they had nobody else. What did the Raiders do? They went out and drafted Henry Ruggs, the best guy who can stretch defenses. Speed, that's stupid. She's just so fast. That hurts Darren Waller. It hurts Darren Waller because he's not going to be that option. He's going to see a lot more underneath targets. PPR, he could see more receptions this year, I fully believe. Yards, I think he takes a step back. Touchdowns, I think he takes a step back. And then you can see how he was used. He had 6.3 yards after the catch last year because he caught a lot of open space catches against linebackers. Zach Ertz, there's an article on FlurrySports.com .org, Jesus Christ, talking about Zach Ertz and how he's going to have a better year this year. Not something I wrote, just a little plug. He had 2.9 yards after the catch last year, and that's mostly because defenses had 4, 6 eyes on him at all times because there was 0 wide receivers at one point. They went out and drafted Rieger to be the Deshaun Jackson type player when Deshaun Jackson's not healthy, just to be able to stretch the defenses, make sure the safety actually has to pay attention to somebody else except for either tight end, Dallas Goedert or Zach Ertz. Both tight ends are going to be on the field a lot. I think Zach Ertz could see some targets taken away this year, but I think his overall yardage is going to pick up as a result of other weapons on the field with him. This is a very, very, very close debate for me. And kind of the tiebreaker for me does go back to Jason Witten, the guy that you guys don't know what the hell they're doing. He's not necessarily going to take Waller off the field a lot. Raiders ran multiple tight ends about 30% of the time last year, second to only Baltimore. They're going to do it a lot. They need a blocking tight end because Darren Waller is not going to block. So they got Jason Witten, who is mostly a blocking tight end. But Waller played 90% of the snaps last year. It's going to come down. He's going to play around 85, 80, which does that hurt his value? Not necessarily. I don't really care about that. But it is another red zone target. I think Waller's overall touchdowns come down. I can look to see how many touchdowns he had here in a second. But that's where I think the main regression for Waller is next season. I have his stats here. 1 second. He had only 3 touchdowns. And I believe a lot of those were just big gains. They weren't red zone. And I just don't think the big gains are going to be there this year. He also has a much, much tougher schedule this year just because of the division getting better and because of non-conference opponents. Zach Ertz still plays in the NFC East.
Big advantage.
Anyone can. Big advantage for anybody. As much as Cowboy fans like Jake here wants to argue about the NFC East being good. But NFC East is...
Do not brand me a Cowboys fan. Do not.
I mean, listeners can make up their own mind. You're defending
after the first 2 segments. We might have to.
Somebody just cut up a video of me just like drooling over the Cowboys. I'm like, no, that's not how it came across. It wasn't supposed to, at least. Just this year.
That's what it is every year, Jake. You're a part of the media now. You got to feed into that Cowboys hype. This
True.
is their year.
True. It's always their year.
It's always their year. That's it. In Jerry world, every day's Christmas, baby.
You guys have seen the meme. Please tell me you've seen the meme where it was just an ongoing thing. Every time the Cowboys lost last year, and it just said, just checking to see if y'all still them boys. And it would be the quarterback of the winning team, like peeping his head like up from the side or the bottom or the top. And then like they have the cat from the Monday night game of the Giants. There's like a little cat in there as well. Like that was one of my favorite memes of the whole season.
Yeah, the Cowboys are on the butt end of many, many, many memes.
As they should be. But just if I have to pick between these 2 tight ends, I'm going to pick the guy that I know. At tight end, I don't want to question this year. If I'm not waiting till the end and taking prospects, just kind of dart throws, then I want somebody who I can fully trust. And I am a believer that the Raiders are a good team, actually. John Gruden continues to make chicken salad out of chicken shit every year as a whole. And now he actually has some weapons. Derek Carr, I think, is a pretty good quarterback. I just don't think he's a good quarterback for this team. I think they will move on from him pretty soon. But Darren Waller, he's a top 7 tight end for me, but I would rather take Zach Ertz. What about you guys? Any final thoughts?
No, looks like we're 2-2 after the first round of ADP battles here. So
Zach comes in with his gavel after every one. And
yeah, no, I like that.
You either feel great about your takes or you walk away with your tail between your legs. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I still feel great about my takes no matter what.
That's right. You just enjoyed Mike McCarthy in Dallas this year.
I don't think it's going to be that bad. I don't think it's going to be that bad.
He did say he got more analytical. I'm in favor of that.
That's what I'm saying. I think
bullshit. There's no way.
We'll see. We will definitely see, because I mean we're gonna be able to tell immediately if he's the same guy or if he's if things are actually different. You're gonna be able to tell right away, especially like Zach and I and the Packers faithful, which it's not like we had 3, 4, or 5 years of this. Like there was 12, 13, however long he was here, 15. I can't even remember, but yeah, I think we're going to tell right away. I think early on in the season, we're going to get an indication of what this.
I think so. And, one of the biggest knocks Mike McCarthy had in Green Bay was he always got away from the running game every time. Eddie Lacy would go crazy like in the playoff game against Seattle, and then they got away from it. That's what happened last year in Dallas with Zeke. He would go crazy in the first quarter and then do nothing. They wouldn't give him the ball. So I'm interested to see if McCarthy listens to Jerry and gives, Zeke the ball a lot, because that's what Dallas is going to do this year. They have to, because they don't want Dak's numbers to be, astronomical, because they want, hey, you came down a little bit lower. Let's lower your contract a little bit. Jerry knows what he's doing. But, yeah, I don't know.
They are just praying for Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and a few others to have the year of their life. So even if Dak does play well, they can be like, well, all these guys played better, so we can't pay you that much.
They offered him a lot of money, man. They offered him a lot of money and a lot of years, and Dak said no because he wanted less years. So he can, whatever.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I said way back at the beginning, like, he is playing for a contract, but it's not like he's never been offered a contract. So he's playing for a contract on his own volition. So, make of that what you will.
That's right. Final thoughts on anything fantasy related, sports related, golf related. What's going on in that right now?
There's a winner, Colin. I believe you pronounce his name Morikawa. He's only placed in one other PGA championship or major PGA tournament before, which was last year's U.S. Open. He took 35th, shot a 6 under today to blow past guys like Dustin Johnson, Daniel Berger, everybody else up at the top of the leaderboard. Brooks Koepka blew past him with a 6 under today. So impressive by the 23-year-old young golfer there.
Try and find the video of him lifting the jug after, because it was so windy out there. The top blew off. I just happened to glance up.
Oh, really?
Doing the trophy presentation, and he lifts it over his head, but it's so windy the top of it flew.
That's funny. I'm sure I'll see it on Twitter as soon as we log off here. But
absolutely, it's worth it.
I'm looking forward to doing more of these, and obviously we're going to have a ton more fantasy content at Flurry on all of our personal Twitters, everything like that. So if you liked what we did today, there's plenty more coming over the next 6 months or so.
That's right. And above each person's name, you have their Twitter account. So go follow them on Twitter. Follow FlurrySports on Twitter. This isn't my personal. This is of the company. If you want to watch these live, if you're watching on YouTube right now and want to join the chat live, go to Sportscaster, link in the bio, and follow FlurrySports. So you can get a notification when we go live. If you have any questions, ADP battles of your own, leave them. 3 or maybe some other guys will come back and we can discuss them. I mean, we're getting close to draft season. I'm excited. Right now, I keep signing up for more dynasty leagues for some reason because I'm bored. But I need some redraft love pretty soon. I have a redraft league tomorrow, actually. Shit. But there's going to be a lot more questions coming out. We're going to be more videos coming out of training camp. It's a little bit of a unique situation this year, but it should be a good time. So from all of us, thanks for watching, and yeah, see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.